What is echo and what is reverb? And what's the difference between the two? We're going to look at these two things and try to figure out just exactly what they are. Coming up. Hi, my name's Todd and this is the Learn About Music channel. We're glad that you're here. We're going to examine a topic today which can be very enlightening for you, because sometimes the topics of echo and reverb are talked about all the time, and you'll hear something, somebody will play something and say, boy, that sounds kind of echoey. Or you have some instance where you hear something, oh, that sounds like feedback. And sometimes we get these terms confused, and I thought it would be helpful that we can go ahead and distinguish the difference between what reverb is and what echo is. So both of these effects are phenomenons that happen in nature, and they are also have been mechanically reproduced both in sound production and for music production. Now, I did a video earlier talking about naturally occurring reverb and what that was, but I want to kind of go through that just a little bit so that we can do this contrast between what reverb is and what echo is. So when we look at this diagram, you can see that we have a sound source on one end. That could be my voice, that could be an instrument, it might be a speaker even. And if we use the example of a voice, as the sound leaves my mouth, it's going to travel outward and it's going to go in many directions as it leaves my mouth. It's going to hit the ceiling, it's going to hit the walls, it's going to hit the floor, it's going to hit the back wall, and what's going to happen is it's going to bounce back, and eventually it's going to arrive back at my ears, and I'm going to hear the effect of my voice bouncing around the room. Then our brains figure out what they're hearing, and so if I'm in a smaller room, that bounce back, that time that it takes for the sound to bounce around the room is very short, and so there's very little delay between the time I speak and the sound that comes back. I'm in a small room right now, and there's not a lot of reverb that you actually would hear with my voice. So that's an example of a very small room. But in certain rooms, you might have a larger room, and so it takes some time to reflect off the many surfaces, and as it comes back, you're going to have a lot of delay coming from multiple directions. The key here is when we talk about reverb is that it's multiple sources. So as in the instance of leaving my mouth and going around the room, it becomes many different sources as it hits many different places in the room, and they arrive back at my ears at different times. And that's the differentiator, is that there's multiple sources arriving back at the listener, and it creates an effect of the size of the room, and reverb is often used to add warmth to certain instruments so that they sound a certain way here. So let's take a look at some of the examples of these. So we have an example of a piano here, and this is dry. There's no effect added to it at all, so you can hear that. So that's just a regular piano and how it sounds. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to put this signal into a large sounding room and see what it sounds like. Okay, let's see what it sounds like now. As you can hear, it has a lot of length to it. So even though I let go of the key, it carries on, and you can tell it's a very large room, and all those reflections takes a little bit of time. In this instance, it looks like it's taking about 5.6 milliseconds of time. Yeah, you can hear all that length. Let's look at a medium-sized room. Okay. Cuts off. So you can tell it's a little bit smaller size room here, and your ears fill it in. They're like, oh yeah, I've been in that room. Now let's take a look at a smaller room, maybe a room about this size. So there's not going to be a lot of time between the time the sound leaves and comes back. Let's try it out. Okay. Very small. Very small indeed. So this is an example of 3 different size rooms and how we would distinguish what reverb is. It gives you the sense of space and size. Now, echo is different. It is sometimes called delay, and the main differentiation between reverb and echo is that echo is a single source. It's a single sound that goes, it hits something and it comes back. So the naturally occurring version of this would be that if I went to Red Rocks Amphitheater, which is here in Denver, and I went to the middle of the seats here, here's a picture of it, and I decided and I yelled out to one of the walls, "Hey!" you would hear a delay come right back. And it would echo off one side of the wall and then echo off the other side of the wall. So that's basically what an echo does. Here's an example of it here. So as long as there's something to bounce off of, it's going to bounce and come back. Now, it can get a little confusing here because in naturally occurring instances, an echo also does create multiple sound sources and eventually does create a reverb kinds of effect. In the mechanical version of that, an echo is generally thought of as like what you just heard. You're hearing a single echo come back with something, and mechanically we can address the length of that. Is it going to repeat again and again? Is it going to repeat only once? And so it's a very different type of feel to it. And we use echo in instances of where we want to perhaps just create a real quick bounce back effect on certain things. You'll hear it on certain records where you hear somebody at the very end of a sentence that they sing, "And then I know God again, 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 again." You'll hear that echo follow right after that. It's a nice effect to be able to use when you can use it effectively within time and in other instances. So that, in a nutshell, is really a very simple way to look at the difference between reverb and echo. In the future, we might talk a little bit more about some other effects, especially as they relate to some of the audio effects that are used within sound production and music production, things such as flanger and chorus. These are different types of things which manipulate the source of a sound so that it creates different effects. The question of the day is, did you know the difference between echo and reverb before today? And tell me your experience that you have with that. It's really great having you here today. I appreciate you coming to my channel here. If you liked what you heard today, please hit the like button. I appreciate that. And any comments you have, please join in here. I try to respond to all your comments so that we can talk about these things and learn more about music together. I'm Todd, 6'5", 220, cut like a piece of granite. And I'm glad you're here. We'll see you next time.